In discussion, we're live, and it's all about grassroots football. In particular, here tonight, we want to chat about community football and what's going on in our Bangladeshi community, particularly here in East London. So with me to talk about all things grassroots football, I have a couple of familiar faces and one not so familiar, yet it'll be interesting to hear his thoughts on why he thinks maybe we are not getting the numbers of footballers as we would like to see. So let me start by introducing the gentleman to my left. First of all, we have some will know him, some won't, but hopefully you're going to see a lot more of him over the coming months. To the show, NURUL HAQUE. Walaikum salam. And you are the founder and the owner of Tower Hamlets Football Club. And we'll learn a bit more about you over the show, but also the coming months as well, as you know. And to my right, we have a familiar face with many. He's been on the show before. We have RAHMAN from Pro Touch Academy. Welcome, Ash.
Thank you. Assalamu
alaikum. Salam. And finally, the far right, we have HASAN, who is a qualified coach and a qualified referee as well as being a prominent businessman within the community. So we'll learn more about what his journey entails over the coming months and years. So I guess without any further ado, let's get started. The first question I want to ask really is, listen, we've been talking about this topic for 20, 30 years. I've talked this topic to death over the last 10, 15 years in my time in London. I've done many a TV show, many a radio show, heavily involved in the grassroots scene, still involved with the FA, Kick It Out, Football Fans for Diversity, the road shows up and down the country that we're doing. Ash, I'm going to come to you first. We were talking off air, and like I said, the topic speaks for itself, grassroots football and Bangladeshi community. I guess I'm going to start right from the top in terms of why is it that we still haven't got Bangladeshi footballers playing non-league football, let alone professional football?
I think for me, when I started up in the industry, I started up as an unknown 16-year-old, so wanting to be a professional footballer wasn't good enough, lack of opportunities, etc. So I decided probably at the age of 17, 18, I wanted to change that narrative. I was very lucky at the age of 16 to find a young 11-year-old Bangladeshi boy from Camden, Lukoiza, and I managed to somehow get him into Leighton Orient. Back then, it was a gentleman by the name of Chris Ramsey. Anyone in the football industry will know Chris Ramsey. And Chris Ramsey said I wasn't good enough to get a scholar at Leighton Orient. I then said 2 weeks later, I've got this player, and he happily said bring him over. 4 weeks later, this young Bangladeshi boy from King's Cross signs at Leighton Orient on a 2-year schoolboy form. Immediately, my life changed rapidly. I was seen as this young guy giving young boys in the area an opportunity in King's Cross in Camden, and others started to follow suit. But at no point did I ever think this is going to be only for Bangladesh. In fact, I wanted to focus purely on anyone who felt deprived, felt lack of opportunity, didn't have the support at home, etc. So when we talk about Bangladeshis and lack of Bangladeshis coming through the system, there is no question there is talent. There is talent, but it's how you manage that talent and how you pass that through the channel. And every Bangladeshi coach, and if we're going to talk specifically Bangladeshi, every Bangladeshi coach or every Bangladeshi-led football club, whether it's in Tower Hamlets or outside of Tower Hamlets, there is a certain element of skill sets. They will have a certain amount of strengths, knowledge, experience. But there is also the other side of the coin where they won't have that. So therefore, you need to pass that on to someone who has that. For example, could be connection. So I was very lucky that I never wanted to see myself as a Bangladeshi firstly. Not saying I didn't feel proud of it, but my mindset was I'm just a football coach and a football scout, and I'm going to try and set up the best football academy 16 years ago, how we started. So my mindset from the beginning was completely different. So when we're looking at Bangladeshi players, you've got to ask yourself, was the support there of, let's say, Bangladeshi-led football clubs, whether it was from East London, etc. For a good 10 years, if I'm honest, I don't remember having Bangladeshi-led organisation reaching out to me. Now, firstly, my name is Ash Ador, but I go by the name of Ash. So you might think this is not a Bangladeshi guy or an Asian guy, but if you're smart enough, you'll work out the surname is a Bangladeshi name. So yeah, it took 10 years or maybe more to have people coming up and saying, by the way, I've got a young Bangladeshi boy, can I offer him? Now I know someone within the East London game, or shall I say an administrator, he brought his child over to us. And at that point, I said to him, knowing who he was and his interest and his background, I said, I don't think your kid's good enough. What have you been doing in the last 10 years with your kid? Oh, you know, I'm trying, I'm busy. I said, well, you're busy, but what is your priority? Your priority is investing in your children. So for me, this is where the issue is. The support mechanism is there if you go out looking.
Okay. With that, we're going to come to... quickly touch on, obviously, Nurul Bhai, you've been involved at Tower Hamlets Football Club. You know the East London football scene, and one of the topics Ash just touched on was the lack of quality. It's been 10 years. If my club, whether it's Newark, Valence, whether it's a Wapping, Canary Wharf, whoever it may be, playing in the community, has a child who's good, do you find that these clubs are holding back their players? Is it, and are afraid to share the players with the better clubs?
Always, the question is what you're going to look at with Tower Hamlets, and in some organisations they're doing a wonderful job in the community-wise. So if you're talking about obviously the level of football is totally different to them. These clubs are playing in organised leagues, and their players are moving on from the age group into their first team and then playing into organised leagues. They're not moving away from Tower Hamlets. So if you, first of all, you got to understand, are we, this academy or whatever we call it in Tower Hamlets with certain organisations, are we there to just get coming in, playing and then getting through our system and then playing into like organised leagues and organised tournaments? Or are we there to obviously push them, that we shouldn't be looking at teams like Leighton Orient. There's teams below that you have to look at. We're always talking about Premiership football. I'm just going to quickly just go and come back down again to this here. We talk about Premiership football. We've never talked about non-league football. Moving them into certain steps, like step 5, step 4, step 3.
Even step 7.
I'm just saying, just if you're talking about the FA Cups and the FA Vars, it's giving kids opportunities. 17-year-olds are playing in the FA Cup, the FA Vars. Our 17-year-olds playing at organised like BFA Summer League, ILFL leagues, which is not a problem. But what do you want? Do you want them to still play in that kind of league and still talk about racism? Talk about giving them opportunities? What opportunities are you giving them? We take one of our kids to West Ham, we take him to foundation, to academies, and we're talking about, oh, they're already made it into the first team. We're going out, giving interviews and going into media. We should be working towards, taking these players into these kind of academies, but locally there are teams that are delivering that. Then just take them to these youth foundation, youth club. What do you call it? The academy in like West Ham Academy, Leighton Academy. It's just another ticking boxes to me. I've got no problem with these clubs, but you've got clubs on your doorstep like Tower Hamlets Football Club. You've got Sporting Bengal who are playing at that level. But the difference between us is that we've already got a setup of youth playing in the Echo League. And this is where you go into. You go into Echo League. From Echo League, you come into Essex, and you move up to the first team of, you play into the reserves in the Essex reserves, and then you come into the first team. And from there, you move on. You've got then other clubs that we pass on our players to, like RAHMAN 1, RAHMAN 2 conference. And we've got 30 players that's already moved from this. But I don't see why the Bengali players can't move, because we've got the passion. It's changed a lot from the last 20 years to where we are now. We used to talk about we didn't have the facilities. This is what Ash was saying. We talk about racism. Racism is always going to exist. So we're not going to let racism, stop us, prevent us going in. We move forward individually. Obviously, Ash Bhai, I've known him for many years. Look at the work that he's doing, the work that I'm doing. We're around internationally with other countries. If there was racism, then we would have not been even moving away from Tower Hamlets. We would have been stuck in Tower Hamlets. So you've got to have that mindset, and you as a parent as well, got to look at where you're taking your kids. If you're going every week to a training session, or if you're going every week and you're not seeing the kids developing or they're not moving on from that,
question needs to be asked.
Exactly. You as a parent need to ask that what's happening with my kid, because we've been here with you for 5 years.
It isn't personal.
Yeah.
What we all have to respectfully remember that is that your children are your biggest asset, as far as I'm concerned. So therefore, if a parent leaves Pro Touch and respectfully tells me that, or my team, that I don't think my son is developing here,
Yeah.
and I believe I could go across the road, whoever that is, and I can get more, I have to accept that. Well, I have to accept, but I also have to look at myself in the mirror and my team and say, why did this happen? What are we doing incorrect? What are we not providing that family, that parent, that child? Now, of course, you're going to have busy parents. You're going to have some parents who just like to fish around and like to go places, and that's okay. But you as a parent have to question. Now, what Nurul said, a very good point, is are you sending your kid there for the sake of it, so that you can have a little chit chat with some of your friends or some of your cousins, or are you sending that child there because you genuinely believe it's the right place? There is no question asked here about is there talent in East London. There is talent in East London.
Okay, so it's about nurturing that talent, and I think, listen, it's a bigger conversation. I think we need to find out as to what the reasons are for that. I think you guys have touched on some of them reasons. I want to come to brother Abu Hassan here on the far side. You know, you're Abu Hassan, you are a qualified coach. You're a qualified referee also. Now, what Ash and Nurul have both said is obviously in terms of the desire from the parents, the desire of the club, the desire from the children in terms of how far they want to go in their footballing career. There are so many opportunities, there's more than just professional football clubs, maybe focus on those. We're lucky in East London, we have Sporting Bengal, we have Tower Hamlets, we've got other opportunities, clubs that are playing at Step 7 as well. From your experiences as a coach and as a referee, what are you seeing and why do you think there's a real lack of Bangladeshi footballers coming out of the East End?
Assalamu alaikum to everyone. From my experience, I'll just touch on how I started off. Started from 1992 when I was playing. That time it was a club called St. Matthias in Dalston. I was the only Asian player there. And the rest was all different coloured, whites and blacks. But I was the only one there to get into that team. There used to be, in my age group, there used to be 2 teams. And I was the only Asian player there. But on that particular time, I can only say this just, there was few, because that time we used to get scouts from Arsenal, QPR, Fulham, Leyton Orient, but Chelsea even, because some of my mates, one of them went to Tottenham, but he had the opportunity to go to Fulham and QPR, but he chose Tottenham instead. Another one, that was my time, another one had a chance to go to Leyton Orient and Charlton, but instead he chose Arsenal. Now, to me, I mean, that particular time, it wasn't up to the coaches to decide, or it was up to the parents to decide where you think your child would be best suited.
So at that particular time, in terms of, you said, you just touched on it, it's very rare being in London that you were the only Asian footballer.
Yeah.
What was that feeling like, and what were your aspirations, and what were you thinking? Did you want to be a footballer? Is that what your aspiration was?
To be honest, I was, because I was in the same level as them. But I could have played in defence, I could have played in the right wing, because there was nobody faster than me in that particular time. I would have to say the parents.
Your parents?
Parents, yeah, because once you look at it, that particular time I'm talking about, there wasn't much of a support, because once you're in the thing, they're always going to look for you know, that type of thing. So I think that particular time, I think the parents made a big involvement in my, not just mine, in the others where they chose Tottenham instead of Fulham. And when I was coaching, same problem happened again. There's two very good players, very skilled players that chose. There was QPR wanted to take them to me and said, can we have that person? But he instead went to Chelsea. We said, go to Chelsea, because you're not going into the reserve team. Because Chelsea, what is Chelsea good for? Buying out players, Arsenal buying out players. But QPR Charlton, that particular time, they didn't have no money. So that structure itself would have been perfect for them to go into. It's the parents' decision that led them to.
Well, look, things have changed now. I think we're in your days, in our days, when our parents obviously they had their reasons. They were financially with we cannot know. It is what it is. I think.
Just going to that. I mean, back in the days, we were all like.
Just quickly before, listen, guys. Just a quick one. The number is across the bottom of the screen for those people that are watching and want to get involved in the discussions. It's all about grassroots football and why there is a real lack of Bangladeshi footballers in the UK playing at any level, particularly non-league and above. And so listen, the numbers at the bottom of the screen. If you want to get involved, give us a call. You'll be live in the studio and we can hopefully get either myself or one of the panelists to answer the question for you. So Nurul,
so I'm saying, like, obviously with us, we were more committed, like obviously supporting our parents. You know, when we were playing football, we were 25, going into these leagues, we were like 25-year-olds. So we've only had certain time, you know, to give. Like, I mean, for ourselves, Ty Hamless FC, which was Bethnal United, when we went into combined counties, we had over starting 11, we had about 7 Bengalis playing. Went into Middlesex County First Division, we had 7 Bengalis playing, 7, 8 Bengalis playing. Going to the Premiership, that division, you know, we had 3 or 4 Bengalis playing, but we never had the flow of players coming in.
Production line.
To then, you know, continue bringing the Bengali players moving forward. And
that's a great point you make, because that's a great point you make.
So we were there. The players were there playing in these kind of leagues. I mean, we were winning. We were winning trophies. We were winning the division cups, but nothing stopped us. You know, we were fasting. You're fasting. You're playing 90 minutes of football. So what excuse do we have now for the next generation when we as parents are supporting our kids? Okay, so we say, Ash. This question probably to Ash. You may as well answer this one from. There's a. Everybody says it, I have this conversation day in, week out, about the talent pool is there. Whether it's here in East London, whether it's up north, wherever, we say there is the talent pool is there. What's stopping us and what is the next step? Without having excuses, do we have the right quality of coaches for these talented individual players?
So I'll break it down in a couple of sections. Firstly, you need a very good operations team. So when I mean operation, I'm not the coach. I'm there to mastermind the plan, the strategy, put the infrastructure in place, go and hire or headhunt certain individuals to give me the foundation. So that's the first thing. You need the right people around for the right reason. Yeah. Everyone has to be on the same page. So the people behind it. Then you're going to look at what is the short, medium, long-term vision. Now, it's very easy to say, well, I want to produce a professional footballer. How realistic is that? What is the process for us to do that? Yeah. How are we going to go about it? And then finally, without the support of the people in the community, whether that be local businesses, whether that be families, whether that be similar like-minded football clubs, coaches, etc., if they are not behind it, then you all gonna struggle. Great point. Because at the end of the day, I've always questioned myself, being a North London lad, how on earth has East London not produced a Bengali football player? I have asked that question numerous times.
And what's the answer you come up with?
And the answer is people are not working together and fighting for the same common goal. And the common goal should be, we want to see from our East London, I don't care whether it comes from Valence, whether it comes from Wapping, I do not care. What I do care about is we're all working on the same page. So when you talk about semi-pro system without, and I don't mean that in any disrespectful way, let's talk Sporting as an example, okay? They've been around as far as I can remember growing up playing. Why haven't they set up an infrastructure of top Asian priorities players across the whole of East London, whether they are being feeded by grassroots clubs, put them through the system? I think Nurul mentioned it, the production line, coming into under 10s, going into under 12s, under 12s to 14s, 14s to 16, then 18s, then under 23s or under 21s, and then going to reserve, and then pushing them into the first team. So what you have is you have a pathway of production line. So when I get to first team as a manager, I know I've got someone to look back on, just like professional football clubs.
But unfortunately, we can't answer that question because we don't have a representative of Sporting Bengal.
But that's
here,
just
so,
one example, and that example or that model is the same at grassroots level.
You say that, but to a gentleman to my left has that. So you have everything.
Have everything that you need.
That Ash has just mentioned, right?
You've got the teams that are playing in the youth league. That's moving.
Not just any youth league, in the Echo League. The best standard of junior football you can get in East London.
Okay, so that's great, IMRUL.
And the question would then be for me is why is there not this? So then it comes back to unity, the support.
So this is what I was going to say. So it's all good and well having a fantastic vehicle to drive, but if you don't have the tools, meaning driving license, or if you don't know the roads, etc., then it's already a battle you're facing against yourself. So if people are not going to support Tower Hamlets or NURUL, etc., for whatever reason that is, people are allowing their personal differences to get in the way of a long term. So I always say to people, I'm okay and I can accept people not liking me. I can deal with that. All right, because this is not a popularity contest. I'm not planning to be a councillor. All right, that is a popularity contest. You need people behind you. This is about what are we trying to achieve.
This is about a long-term goal. It's about a vision. It's about,
correct.
It's about leaving something behind for the future generation. And with that, with the interest of time at hand, Abu Hassan, I want to come to you, brother. Same question to you in terms of, obviously you're a coach yourself. You've heard what these guys have said. You're somewhat of an outsider being What do you think?
I've been out of the game for almost like 8-9 years.
But does this resonate with you?
It does, absolutely. Because I still remember when I was coaching and the council, one of the council staff said that, yes, we will give you the grant, what you're doing, but, there's a big but, you have to take this off. Meaning, our powerhouse was football because we had 11 or 12 teams.
Wow.
That was football. You have to take this off. You have to take table tennis off. You have to take this off. Instead of that, you have to bring in
X, Y, Z.
the same thing that they get taught in schools. I said, hold on. You want us to take football off? You take away football, that's it. The club's finished, basically. So if they're not going to look after their own community, how can we?
I mean, going on your point regarding we're looking at grants. We should not be even relying on a council to give us grants to run our organisation in football-wise. It's different when you're running a youth club.
Correct.
It's different when you're running, educational system.
No, I'm not talking about
I'm just
football side. Football side was maintained. Football side was maintained separately.
No, you maintain.
Guys,
what I'm saying is,
we're going to come back to this. I think it's quite a hot debate. I think from my perspective, I think it's a great conversation that we're going to carry on after the break. Guys, once again, for those that are watching, it's lively in here. We want to hear your voices. We want to hear what your thoughts are on the topic. When we come back, we're going to continue the discussion, youth club versus football club, and grants and money and how all that works. I'm curious to learn what you guys are doing yourselves to keep your clubs afloat. So guys, 2-minute break. When we come back, we will continue the discussions, all things grassroots football and particularly around the Bangladeshi community. See you in 2 minutes.
Tapsan.
Welcome back to One Sport, and we're live in the studio once again, and we've got the hot topic. Listen, during the break it's been getting quite lively here, so I want to continue our discussion. When we left just before the break, we were talking about the difference between youth centres and a football club. Youth centres are given grants. A football club is run solely on the money that it brings in it for itself through businesses, through sponsors, and not through any grants. So Nurul, you were chatting just before now. Give us a difference between now. A lot of people are wondering, especially in East London, because they just see organisations. Do people actually know the difference between an organisation who's getting a grant and a football club? Or are they the same thing, or are they two different things?
I mean, what we were just talking about earlier on when the brother here said regarding you have to take away certain sports or what you've got, or you won't get grant from the council. So where I was just pointing out on this one was, when we're doing a football club, it's totally different from a youth club. A youth club could get a grant, but you're getting grants for your residential, you're getting grants for whatever project that you want to deliver. Football is just on the side. I mean, there are grants available for football. You got awards for all. You got places or businesses that you could go and get sponsors to run your football club. So what we're doing at the moment, like yourself, you've seen the clubs in Tower Hamlets as well. So we're all associated to youth clubs. We've all of us. There's certain, there's good 4 or 5 that are just football teams that are participating, like Essex Alliance, ourselves in the Essex Senior. Now we're in obviously step 6 now. So. So when we're saying this, when we want to do a football team, as for myself, when I've done it, I didn't look at, would I get grant to run my football club? Yeah, I've done it. How do I move my football? This is my project. This is what I want to do. If there's no grant available, can I sustain my club? And this is what I'm going to be doing. And no one's going to, there's not going to be, I'm not going to get funds from the council, so my organisation's not going to run. So this is the difference that we got to look at. Is if when these if a football team saying, "Well, we got no funds to run this club," this is where we look at. Are they an organisation that's running a football club, or are they just running a youth club? And this is just teams that they've got part of a youth club that they participate in local organised leagues. Yeah.
So this begs the question: is it a case? Have we come to the situation where the organisation it's not so much about the football; it's about the money now? Is that the problem in Bengali football? Is it not so much? Is the footballer a check? Is the footballer kaching money? Every footballer brings in money. What's the situation? I
mean, so you got to look at who set up which set up. I can't name which organisations or anyone or what. So what I'm saying is, if you've got an academy or a so-called academy, and you're charging your membership fees, I'm sure. I haven't come across yet 250. I've come across 350 a year membership fees around Tower Hamlets, and then they're paying £2 a session, going to these training sessions every week. So there's a lot of money available there to sustain your football club in whatever league you're playing. So you don't have to rely on council grants.
The reality, bums on seats equals pound coins.
Yeah.
Okay, so the more young people you have, the more players you have, you could look at them as pound coins if you look at it on a business way of thinking or looking at things. The reality is, again, like Nurul said, what is the purpose of you running a football club, or what is the purpose of you running a youth provision? So Pro Touch started as an elite institution of a football academy. So there is no youth club nonsense at that site. It was there for one sole purpose, is to develop, nurture, mentor, produce professional footballers, which we have done.
Which you have done
from the Premier League all the way down to semi-pro. So that was the aims and objectives. Several years later, we decided to set up a side of the organisation which focused on community engagement, youth provision, residential, etc. Now there is two sides of the business. The Elite Academy is a private football academy which generates income through sponsorship, through annual membership, 100 quid, monthly fees, etc. That has to be sustainable one way or another. The community side of the initiative where it receives public funding from local authorities, grants, etc. That needs to cover that side of the business. So what you can't have is both. Now there is a bit of collaboration time to time, but the entity is two separate bank accounts, two different ways of reporting your finances to the relegated bodies or the councils. So it is okay to do that. And if you're now talking about East London as a whole, there are organisations turning over £1 million in East London as a whole. Now that's a lot of money.
And we talk about Tower Hamlets being deprived.
Yeah, and Tower Hamlets is one
Tower
of the
Hamlets
most.
is not
On paper, it's deprived.
On paper, but
on
not
paper, on deprived. But it's how much can you do with £1 million? What are the resources? Who are you paying? How are you paying? You know, am I giving someone jobs at the adequate salary? So, for example, it could be I go to a funder, I want a football development officer, his salary is going to be 40k in the application. All of a sudden, that same role is now advertised and it's given 25. Okay? We're using the remaining funds.
Okay, away from the politics of it all. So you've mentioned the money. So what we're saying is the issue there? Is the issue like the lack of quality at a coaching level?
100%.
Yeah. Yes.
Infrastructure, resources. You
Because
know,
I mean, coach, like you're saying, coaching level. So who are the coaches? You got to look at the coaches that you're bringing in, and you know, even playing wise, you know, where have they played? You know, to bring in that football into the youth that they're training. So,
and the other issue we have, a lot of it is around, you know, you touched on it at the very beginning, around community football. I don't know how much you know about this, Abu Hassan Bhai, but the Tower Hamlets, where they have the youth leagues, where we have the winter leagues, the summer leagues.
I've heard some, but I haven't.
You know, so do you guys, again, I'm not apologies to dipping in there. Do you think is that positive, or is that one of the reasons why?
So if you look at, let's say, the Upazila tournament, okay, which many of us have been there, participants, supporters, why haven't they considered running a similar version where maybe they don't represent a particular village or a particular club, but what they're saying is, we want young people aged between this, you turn up and we're going to have qualified coaches to put you in squads. This isn't about winning, this is about developing. Or furthermore, a coach education seminar where you bring in outside coaches and you have a coaching academy where coaches from within the grassroots level can attend on a monthly basis. Now I know West Ham do something similar, okay, they may pick and choose who gets along with who and they have priorities maybe, but the reality is if clubs within East London or clubs in general don't put the resources in. So I took our Pro Touch coaches to Liverpool Academy. Now that costs money to travel up there, accommodation, time away from your family, time away from your day-to-day duty, whether you're working full-time or whether you work for the organisation full-time. That is an experience just so that our coaches can have that 1% more over Coach IMRUL, Coach NURUL, or whoever.
Isn't it? It's a development.
But I don't know anyone other than going over to West Ham maybe and one or two others. I don't know of anywhere else people have gone outside their comfort zone.
So we have, Tower Hamlets FC has, like, obviously problem is that the club that we're running, Tower Hamlets FC, so basically I'm running on my own, which I've got obviously friends supporting the clubs, because like I said, we're all working full time and, you know, trying to support the club with the reserves, with the junior teams. I mean, IMRUL alhamdulillah, has joined Tower Hamlets Football Club, and this is the question they was asking, why is it that, you know, we're not going around, and why the youth from Tower, you know, going to these kind of, playing these kind of academy teams out there? I said, we have, but we haven't marketed it. We played at West Ham, we played here and there, we played at Colchester. We've got connections with Leicester, Southampton. So this is what I've, you know.
So what I'm hearing here is basically we've lost the focus on youth.
Okay.
You haven't. You've done it, but people aren't aware of it.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, as a community, are we losing focus? And you just touched on the Upazala. Are we focusing a lot on vets football?
Okay, yeah.
I think do you think that's the problem?
We're focusing too much on 30, 35 plus.
Exactly.
More, because all I hear
he loves it.
All I hear is vets.
He loves it because he's one of the best players there.
I've been trying to say this. All I hear is vets competition, over 35s, over 40s, master.
But is the reason.
Yeah. Where's the youth? Where's the youth competition?
Which is good, but yeah. Look, it's not a problem. We need that.
We need the youth as well.
It's nice because to see
about it. If I play for, say, for example, Diray, I have a son. My son can represent Diray. So why don't we, as a whole, Upajala, make that into open air, under
But
20s or something.
But we don't. Okay, we don't even have to do Puzzler. We still should have league.
I'm just saying, if it's too complicated for the organisers, I'm just, you know, rounding it up.
Let's be honest, with all due respect, it's not complicated to
Actually,
organise something. There's skill sets. There are skill sets. Or you bring in people.
I mean, this is what
Listen, I think I've got to highlight this. This isn't nothing against Upazala because it's an amazing event.
Absolutely.
It's one of the biggest events. It's probably unbelievable in terms of the success it's had.
Absolutely.
Nationally, it's become the biggest event in the Bangladeshi footballing calendar.
It's a calendar.
It's nice,
it's amazing.
it's good. Everyone gets together.
It's happening again in August, so, you know.
And someone who's won it.
all right.
Listen,
I'm a proud Nobigonji. Listen, it's as important. The focus has to be youth.
Yes.
So look, wherever we're doing organised tournaments, there's nothing wrong with having organised tournaments, organised youth league. What we got to understand is, like, as parents and adults, we're now into tournaments and we're there with our passion. Where's our children? Where are they?
That's my question.
Where are they?
Yes.
Because you know, we've got teams coming from Birmingham, coming from wherever, like Leeds, coming into Brazil tournaments, and we can't take them to international tournaments, to tournaments that's happening. There's lots of tournaments.
If that was a youth tournament, you never know. There could be scouts out there from different clubs.
But this is what we've done at Tower Hamlets. I'll highlight it in another, some other time. But what I'm saying, this is what we've done. We brought a team from France not a couple of years back. I think 2015 or 16. We brought Lyon's under 23, players that have not made it into the teams or who's left. So what we've done, we selected certain players we knew the scouts were going to look at when they know they're coming over to England. But our main thing was there, it was to add the Tower Hamlets players with the players and play a showcase match, what we did. And then that's, which we did, sorry. And that's when we had players. We've had 3 players. One went to Crystal Palace.
Get spotted, yeah.
Yeah, went to Crystal Palace. But this is the kind of thing that we've done.
Platform.
Giving them that platform.
And
because,
in our discussions, I think this is something that, you're very keen to do moving forward.
But this is what I was just about to say. So regarding tournaments and going international and playing, look, we don't want to just turn up into, so what we've done, recently we've just advertised our partnership with Super 5, which they do women's tournaments. What I've done now, me and Shaz, and IMRUL has spoken to him as well, so what we've done is talking to him and bringing that partnership where we could now organise tournaments annually and giving the opportunity where they haven't had it for the good 10, 15 years. That we will be doing now, from like Tower Hamlets. We'll be working in partnership with people, organisations, whoever wants to work with. But that's what we're going to, go out there, fundraise, bring the money in, getting the youth going from these kind of tournaments, not just winning the trophies and just going to a restaurant for a meal, taking the winning team to then wherever we need to take them, to Brazil, to wherever, even in South Asia, so they get the environment, they start meeting, players, they see the academies, how they're running. And they're moving away from these kind of tournaments where they're just getting a little trophy and going home.
Okay, so guys, listen, in the interest of time, there's a couple of other things I want to just touch on as well. But one of the main things that we talk about is, we talk about youth football, we talk about, recently we had the PFA do a number of events. Ash, I think you were involved in these events across London, across the country actually. There was one that you hosted, I think, with PFA.
Yeah.
You supported it with the PFA. There was one at Friendford, which you brought a team to. Now, I was there. The producer, Misbah, was shouting in my ear. He's like, he was there. And the standard was very poor. Again, whose fault was that? Was it the fault of the organisers, PFA, in terms of the time that teams had to prep? Or did teams just literally get kids off? Was it just a PR exercise?
PR, possibly. PR could play a part. The Premier League, as an example, they have the under-15s floodlight, they have the under-14s nationals, under-12s nationals, under-11s nationals. This happens on a national scale where London-based teams will possibly qualify to go and play other Premier League teams on the other side of the country. So that's all scheduled in a very detailed plan. The same can apply to something like what you've just spoken about. The reality is that a priority, or is that something that I woke up on a Monday morning and I fancy doing it?
That's what it seemed like, right?
And so that's one thing. So it's a bit harsh to put that upon the teams who broke their back, changed their diary, families who might have cancelled their holidays or whatever it may be just to get there. So we have to rewind a little bit and say, maybe the reason why these players weren't as good as is were they given the infrastructure, the support mechanism. Now I know from Pro Touch as an example, we don't really have many Asian players. So we had to go and speak to a number of people to put a squad specifically together. Okay?
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But as far as I'm aware, they didn't play together. They had one session. Now some good footballers, and I use the word good footballers, they would adapt in most games because they have the ability. But ultimately, we got to remember this is Asian or South Asians or Bangladeshis. They're not ready for that scale. So if we look at that, so we talk about international youth football. I've been playing and taking teams to international football since the age of 18. Okay, so there's nothing that anyone can educate me on international tours, okay? But what international tour does for young players at 9, 10, 11, it gives them the platform to play in a foreign country with foreign team, a different environment and different setting. You might have your parents there, you might not have your parents there. It might be raining, it might be sunny, the food, change of diet there. So there's a number of things that players have to adapt to. We're taking our under-10s to go and play in Croatia where 80% of the teams are all professional.
Okay, all right, cool. It's a big topic. I know, that's something that we are working on at Tower Hamlets. It's going to be conversation for another day.
It's not about taking them to tournaments.
It's about taking them and identifying the best from the community and working with them, with the league coaches,
and working with clubs,
and working with the clubs within Tower Hamlets, and that's the key. I think we're going to talk about this on another show, but I think we talked about it off air that this is maybe something that should have happened over the years, but it hasn't. But what we wanted to, in partnership with the clubs in Tower Hamlets, is try to provide them and support them with the best quality coaches that we can get. And we've just got Arash Ali, who's the ex-MK. MK Don's academy coach involved at Tower Hamlets now, who's going to be leading up on this program. So Abu Hassan Bhai, I think one thing I wanted to ask you in terms of, as a businessman who's based in the East End of London, there's a number of projects that obviously that are going to be happening over the coming months and over the coming year in terms of this particular topic and the lack of Bangladeshis and supporting them. You know, Tower Hamlets themselves have got a big program of activities coming up. I'm sure Ash has got the same. But from a businessman's perspective and someone who's passionate about sports, someone who's passionate about the development of young, you know where this is going in. I see a smile.
Can I just ask just quickly, do you have online banking?
So listen, so how important is it that people like yourselves get behind not just organizations, but events like this?
It's very important. I mean, I've been wanting to do, you know, the Upajala youth. I've been wanting to do this, the youth, bringing the youth out, because I've got a son who can play. You've got a son. Everyone's got a son. So you can build up that particular network. So I wanted to do that, but I haven't got the right links, as you can say. And I'm already also busy with my own club, because that's getting done within a couple of months. So we'll be getting the keys, and I will be asking one of the brothers. I think all three of you might give us a hand on how to progress it. Because it's been off 8 years, 9 years now. It's coming back up again. So how we can progress with it, and any help needed, I'm there. I'm also on another project of a mosque next to my house. So I'm always busy. You've got
your hands in many.
So, right, but I'm there if needed. So
excellent. Yeah. All right, guys, we're nearly out of time, but I want to just finish on a positive. So, Ash, from your perspective, in terms of, we talk about short, medium, long-term plans. Over the next coming months and the next year, what would you hope that we could maybe see more of?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I was about to add it anyway. The first thing that I would do in East London, I would get all the key players around who are invested in youth football, get everyone around a table and respectfully just come in, putting their differences aside and saying, can we all openly work together and strategize on creating an identity where we all contribute one way or another? Okay, this is something that I'm doing in North London. So it's already, because too many academies filters the quality, okay? I strongly believe every academy or football club or grassroots, call them whatever you want, really rare they'll have a solid group of players, really. So if everyone's got one or two players in their grassroots teams and they were all to be put on a central location and they were coached at a very good standard, not necessarily saying I'm a better coach than you and vice versa, but we all got a skill set and we all contribute, I'm pretty confident that there will be something coming out of that. Then you start progressing in international tours. So if people are not willing to work together, IMRUL, 10 years later, we're going to be having the same topic.
Yeah, great. But on that topic, I'm going to just move off. He pretty much said what Tower Hamlets are in the process of setting up.
This is what we're doing, inshallah.
So, do you want to just give people a bit more, just a quick minute as to where and when this is happening?
What, the tournament?
The academies?
I mean, watch the space, because we just, you know, we've
literally
got
just
a couple
started.
just started literally a couple of weeks ago. We've got a few more meetings and we'll go out and let people know what we're doing.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time, Nurul. I really appreciate it. Like, we're going to hear more from you over the coming weeks anyway. For those that are in the East London area, obviously watching the show, listen, we've got loads planned at Tower Hamlets Football Club. I think from our perspective, what Ash had just mentioned is exactly what we're trying to do. There's going to be a Thursday night elite coaching session that's going to be led up by Arash Ali, who's based in Milton Keynes. And so please, if you're in the area, if you, whatever club you're part of, and you have a child who you think has aspirations to move on, to better himself in the footballing world, then get in touch with myself, with Nurul Bayo, or anyone at Tower Hamlets Football Club. But hopefully, inshallah, you'll see a lot more over the coming months and over the next year. I'm going to finish with our guest on the far right, Abu Hassan. By now, you're also a qualified referee.
I just qualified last year, so
Okay,
I haven't
so
done my,
you haven't done much?
I've done a couple of games, right? I've done a couple
Welcome
of
to
games.
the world of mayhem. So
I've
listen,
done a couple of games. One was with the ladies.
I'm tempted to swear at you right now, get it out of the way.
Trust me, no,
Have you got your red card?
He's going to swear
Have
at
you
you.
got your red card? This gentleman on my left.
Right, you know what, I found,
I'll give you mine.
What I found, I've also done some friendlies with the boys and the girls. The girls' ones are much easier. No,
Really?
no swearing, no headache, you know, no foul language, you know.
Yeah. But listen, we're out of time. Abu Hassan Bhai, thank you for your time. For those guys who are watching and you need a referee, he's just qualified. Upazala, he would love to referee in the Upazala. Anybody but Shaz, if you're watching, we've got your women's referee as well. Yeah. Exactly. Listen, fun times ahead. Guys, thank you for everybody who's watching. Ash, thank you for your time. Nurul, thank you for your time.
Thank
Abu
you, guys.
Hassan Bhai, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Listen, it's been a massive topic. This topic can go on and on and on. Like Ash said, I hope we are not having this discussion in 10 years' time. You know, we want to see change. We want to see some movement. We want to see our kids progress. We want to see more and more of our kids playing more football at a good level. So with that in mind, I'd just like to say thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. You've been watching One Sport. I've been IMRUL GAZI. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.
Sorry.
Okay.